Well, thanks again, Mr. Ross or Bill. I'm not sure which one
Bill.
you'd like to go with. Bill.
I'm
Awesome.
William in print, Bill to everyone. So it's just
Yes,
one of those odd things.
indeed. Well, I first found out about you, my friend, through a thing that had happened, a global concert with Andrea Bocelli that happened on YouTube when he was performing in that Milan cathedral. And I noticed that you had scored or arranged his rendition of Amazing Grace, and which was so touching to me, and I think so many other people, that they had to play it again the following week on YouTube. But then I dug into, William Ross and found that, you're such a prolific person when it comes to scores and music from TV to award shows to live events. And then even I think the reason why we're connecting today too, just your opportunities to be able to score and do music for some really amazing Disney parks attractions. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of want to start there, my friend. I kind of want to know, how did that connection happen with the company, and how you got your career in being able to do music for like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and other things that you did for Walt Disney Imagineering and the company.
Well, like all things, when you talk about a life over a period of time, it's, when you're standing at the front of a ship on the bow and you're looking out, you're just steering the ship whatever way you think makes sense as best you can to avoid collisions and get to where you want to go. But if you go to the stern and look, you start to see how everything is connected, where you were. And so when I look back over a period of time, it's fascinating, the connections. There are so many that I find it really interesting. My relationship with Disney goes back years. I'm not sure when it began, to be honest, but I know I know when I was working with Alan Silvestri, I think one of the second movies we did together, or third, I can't remember, to be honest, was Father the Bride. And, that was a Disney movie, and Chris Montan would come to the sessions, and I got to know Chris. And, I've always had a great relationship with everybody at Disney from my perspective.
Right.
And, I did a few movies with them and have orchestrated many of the films. Artists that work for Disney. It just kind of goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
There's just too many, to really
Right.
think about. But there are these connections that I find fascinating. So as far as the theme parks itself,
Right.
I believe the first time that I really got involved with that was a gentleman at Disney named John Dennis, who is an executive at Imagineering, Walt Disney Imagineering, a wonderful part of the company, very creative. And John's a wonderful guy. We've worked together many times over the years. He called me to do a project that had to do with this incredibly large screen. I mean, we're talking about, 100 yards, 200 yards wide, whatever it was. I mean, it was massive.
Right.
And it was going to be something called Disney Philharmagic. And so we took some of the music from the Disney films and The Sorcerer's Apprentice, the Dukas piece, and we pieced a lot of stuff together. And that was the first time, I believe, that I know that's the first time I worked with John in Imagineering. And that went well, and we've had a great relationship over the years. I've done many projects with them. And that kind of led us into things like Rise of the Resistance, the Galaxy's Edge world. Even before Galaxy's Edge, I was helping to do music for various attractions, Star Tours,
Right.
updating that over the years as the movies would come out. Galaxy's Edge, of course, was a massive project, 3 main attractions, and then a theme itself that John wrote for the world of Galaxy's Edge, wherever that world exists.
Right. I mean, that's amazing in itself that you were mentioning all these connections, and I think that's how the company often works. right? Is that they entrust and hire folks who you know, build a rapport with them over the years, and then obviously there's certainly a uniqueness of then working with those people across a whole bunch of different projects, because they know and trust your abilities, which I think is just a way that the company is able to find so much success and do it, you know, over and over again, because you have these people on call to be able to tap into, which is great to know that you were part of that. I mean, so so I kind of want to dive deeper into more of like, yeah, that the theme park setting and specifically the Star Wars project, because it seems like, I don't know how people, you know, are able to separate the composer with maybe the line of work that you did for the attractions, because when people think of Star Wars music, they automatically think of John. And so how does,
Rightly
and
so.
John is a great person, you know. I had chatted with him, I think once or twice before, and so I certainly feel like there's an origin to that. But where do you and your ability come and complement his work? Specifically, you know, I guess an example would be the Galaxy's Edge projects.
Well, my relationship with John goes back to the second Harry Potter movie, and while that's a different studio, the job, the mission was similar. It was taking John's music, and as he so rightly described it, adapting it to a different situation, but doing it in such a way that it feels integrated, that it feels part of it, that it feels wholly connected, that it doesn't feel like the listener's experience has been, you know, diminished in any way because the music wasn't necessarily written specifically for that scene. You know, John pointed out that his first Oscar, in our first meeting, his first Oscar was for adaptation for Fiddler on a Roof. And so he, you know, that's kind of in his blood. He's started there, and he's obviously had the most phenomenal career as a composer. So my job is, you know, he has a lot of things going on. And so certain things that he feels he doesn't have the time for, or for whatever reason is unable to do, you know, himself do it. I've been fortunate enough that he's asked me to do several of these things. And the way we work is I kind of piece things together, write a bridge, whatever we need to do, you know, in his style. And then I present it to him, and, you know, he signs off on it, makes suggestions, whatever needs to be done. And then we go to Disney with John's approval. They, you know, it's a back and forth. It's a very collaborative experience. But once you get to the final go, then we take this track that we've pieced together and we go record it with an orchestra or whatever we're going to be doing. And that becomes the signature track for that ride, that land, that attraction, whatever it might be.
Right. So yeah, it's sounding like a lot of this is taking partnership. It's less of a, you go and run and do creative license. I mean, obviously you're doing creative license on an original piece of work that's inspired by that, but it sounds like it's more of just this partnership that you have with an original artist to be able to then come up with something that will fit a specific purpose.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Adaptation is truly taking something, in this case, something that John wrote for one specific moment in a film or whatever it might be, and taking that, finding a way to make it work in another context. It might be taking the melody, not necessarily reharmonizing, but reorchestrating it, slowing it down, speeding up, whatever we need to do, maybe using a chunk of it that segues into something else. But I'm always trying to reach into the massive, you know, in the case of Star Wars, is a huge body of work. I mean, it's insane how many hours of music there are. So my job is to reach into that universe musical universe that John's created, and find things that I can work with, piece together, and kind of create this musical quilt that feels like John himself was there doing it.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense too, which I think the follow-up question would be, like, for yourself, where as a person, like as a creative in your space, do you feel like you're able to kind of put your your spin on things. Because I think when I ride, you know, a Star Wars attraction at Disney parks, especially like the work that you did in doing the music for that, I felt like it was straight from the movie, right? And when people think about music, when it comes to something so iconic like Star Wars, obviously that's the effect that people are going to want to have, is that it's part of the movie. So I'm wondering, like, how original and how creative can you be in order for you to put your staple on it, and for people to also know that it came maybe from you, or if that's a totally wrong interpretation of how you see it. I'm wondering what that feels like for you.
Well, my job isn't to recreate John's music. John's done a masterful job of that. He doesn't need my help.
Right.
It's really taking the pieces and fitting them together in a different way. Imagine if you had this magnificent mansion of a house and you took it all apart, and then you went or you copied the house, and then you went over here somewhere else and you built a different house, but it had the same elements. That, you know, rooms might be a little different and stuff, but it's that house. So that's you know, my mission in a way is to be invisible. I mean, you know, John can do this much better than I can. It's just a question of his time. He's one man with a zillion projects, so we have a wonderful relationship, at least from my point of view, where, you know, I help him achieve what he wants to do in any particular environment for those things that he can't be completely hands-on at the moment. It all still goes through him. He's you know, saying yes, he's saying no. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense there too. And it's really cool that you have that really cool relationship with him to be able to partner, and he chooses you to do these things, which I think is a testament to your ability too.
Well, I have such great respect for John, just like, you know, the same respect I have for Elgar, or, you know, John is a masterful, transcendent composer. And so for me to have the opportunity to look over his shoulder is nothing but, you know, heaven for me. I have my own projects that I do. I like to arrange music. I like to orchestrate. I love to compose. You know, I have a kind of a list. If I can get a film or compose something, I love doing that. That's at the top. But, you know, everything just is there. I have no attitude about any of that sort of thing, you know. And working with John is a complete pleasure. He's such a gentleman, such a, you know, a magnificent talent. It's, you know, how could I not just love it? So
absolutely.
And, you know, when I have the time, if I have another project, you know, that needs my time, you know, whenever John calls, his first, after, you know, we trade our niceties, he's always saying, dependent upon your time, Bill, last thing I would want to do would be to impose upon you. So he's just the ultimate gentleman, and very respectful of everybody that, you know, musicians, anybody, filmmakers.
Right.
So
very cool, my friend. Well, pivoting to the two final questions that I have is kind of going and talking about the mansion that you did mention in a moment ago. And so the mansion being a theme park attraction, like, what are some of the complexities there? Because, like, you're making, you know, you have a whole bunch of people who are creating, you know, scenes like a movie, but these are physical scenes with cues, meaning that once something is built, it can't be changed. And so I'm thinking, like, when it comes to music and just the process that you and John were able to piece together cues for these scenes for attractions like Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run and Star Tours, what are some of those difficulties in scoring for theme park attractions?
Well, I mean, one of the main difficulty, of course, is that it doesn't exist when we're starting to work on it. So a lot of it is done through storyboards. And at the very beginning, you get a storyboard, a bunch of still pictures that kind of articulate what the arc of this ride or this attraction is going to be. So that helps us at least get us into the ballpark of, oh, this is going to be this kind of emotional experience, and it starts and it does this, you know. So you get a kind of an emotional landscape. There's a lot of people involved. John, of course, John's music editor, Ramiro Belgart, who's been with John for years. He's a completely invaluable resource because he knows the music so well. He very often will take the first crack at, well, here's some ideas, and he and I will talk, and my team will all talk about what's going on. You know, and John will be there to when Ramiro or I have stuff to run by. You know, he's there to listen and you know, make suggestions, get it the way that he's happy with, of course. After the storyboard comes I think we call them animatics, whatever they are. They're a computer-generated film that hopefully is in as real time as possible. The timeline is critical. That's really important, whether, you know, if it's a roller coaster or Rise of the Resistance or Smuggler's Run, whatever it is, we get this video that's been generated by a computer, and that helps us to know what the timeline is going to be. That's critical. Again, this is all done before anything is built, or it's done as it's being built. So we take that, we then bring our music track to life with that, because we know, well, we're going to get this much time for this, this for this, this for this, all the way through and from beginning to end. That's the arc of the writer's experience. So we now have a track that is based upon that. So what we do then is we keep finessing that track. One of the things, here's a little gem that is interesting to note. A roller coaster arrives at different points in the ride depending upon how much weight is in those cars. So if it's completely full, it moves at one pace. If it's not too full, it moves at a different pace. And depending upon the aggregate weight of the riders, it moves at a different pace. So if you're trying to do something as the people come around a corner and some, you know, jumps out, or a TIE fighter, you know, attacks them or whatever, you have to know exactly when that roller coaster is going to be there, because a split second and the roller coaster is gone. So we build in a lot of these things we call triggers. They're ways of overlapping the music, so you can never hear them, but they're every time that ride or whatever it is, that cart in Rise of the Resistance, whatever it is, all of those are timed to happen at a specific spot, and the music is divided up in ways that allow that. It's fascinating. I never thought of that, but yeah.
It sounds like it's this combination of software, obviously, and hardware, and then obviously your music coming in. It reminds me of something that Disney parades often do. Like if you watch a parade at Disney Park, they're same things, that they kind of like fade in and out depending on where the location of these floats are.
And that's kind of what we're doing on these rides. You know, the speakers are all different places, and we have to be aware of that. The final process of what we do, well, not the final, after the ride is built, we take our track that we've been finessing and we ride whatever it is. We go on the attraction, if it's a walk-through attraction, a ride, whatever, and we play our track. It's just us and the people at Imagineering, and we're going through, and we have new things that we're learning about the ride or the attraction. So we have all this new information, and we adjust the track accordingly. Once we get it to where we feel like everything is working, all the triggers are proper, then and only then do we go record it. And then we mix it, piece it together, and give them the track. And that's the track that lives with that attraction until they decide to change it.
Right. That's amazing, my friend. And how long do you think that process was for something like Rise? How long did that take?
Oh, it was, I don't know, like a year. I remember, I remember when going to the meeting where I don't think this is proprietary, where John came and they had the model of Galaxy's Edge there, and the model was huge. We were like, this is the model. It was amazing. Right. And we were like, are you guys serious? You're going to build this? And it was phenomenal. So from that moment and the meetings at that meeting, you know, the discussions we had, it just kept evolving and working, and you know, getting tighter and tighter in terms of where we are with this, where we are with that. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, a year even sounds pretty quick too, you know, in a lot of people's minds.
it might have been longer. I
Right.
don't really know. I know we went and we did, I think we did 5 trips to London. That was
Mhm.
all recorded with the London Symphony. So we did
Right.
5 different trips, I believe, recording different pieces. And one was specifically for the Galaxy's Edge theme. One was for Rise of the Resistance. They all kind of intermingled and they were done at different times. So
Right. Very cool, my friend. Well, I mean,
oh
that's amazing. To be able to, you know, I'm sure you're recalling certain memories of being able to work on the project too.
oh
And
yeah,
now for people, unfortunately, we're in this lockdown now, so we don't know when we get to ride it again
yeah.
and visit the parks. But I'm wondering for you too, like as this final question, you'd mentioned that you'd been on the ride, and you, as you were finessing the music and stuff like that too. Does it ever hit you how awesome, you know, some of these experiences are, specifically like being able to work on a Disney attraction where
Oh
like Imagineers, like I talk to from, you know, from time to time, is they get emotional. They talk about, you know, like once opening day happens for this attraction and they see the smiles and the faces of children and of families of just enjoying time together, and fans, like, you know, Star Wars fans enjoying, you know, this moment of being able to live out their Star Wars stories. Does it ever hit you in a certain way to be able to reflect and think about, you know, what you're doing for people in life through your music?
always. I mean, I heard Andrea sing and I was like, unbelievable. I'll give you a wonderful example. In Galaxy's Edge, one of the attractions is called Savvy's Workshop, and
Right.
and it's wonderful. It's an opportunity to build a lightsaber, and you have a guide, and you're in this room with 14 other people or 13 other people building lightsabers, and we started with that, with a storyboard. We did the music and everything. And there's a moment, I don't want to give it all away, but there's a
Right.
moment that's very interesting where the guide encourages you or asks you and the rest of the builders to lift your lightsabers. I won't say any more than that, but
Hmm.
what is so interesting about it is when I saw that moment and I felt what they were trying to do, where it was in the arc of the experience, I thought, oh, this is going to be that moment where Yoda raises the ship in Empire Strikes Back, that
Hmm.
marvelous music, and that the end of that moment with that brass fanfare. I thought that would just be heaven. So
Hmm.
we put that in, we did the whole thing. John approved, everything was fine. And when we went and you know, we go through, like I said, on all these rides, once they're ready to go, we go through with our music track, just us and Imagineering, and we experience it. When we went and did that, and we got to that moment,
Mm.
I could feel chills down my
Mm.
back and arms, and you know, and I actually welled up with emotion. And
Mm.
and afterwards, everybody said they all had the same kind of feeling at that moment. And
Mm.
you know, the attraction itself is so beautifully done by Disney, as they do everything. It's just, the attention to detail is stunning. And the music, working with that, just, you know, the whole was greater than the sum of the parts, and it was phenomenal. And it's interesting, I've heard more than one reviewer reviewing Galaxy's Edge, talking about specific things, who have specifically mentioned Savvy's Workshop and that moment as being,
Mm.
it's amazing. I had an emotional experience that brought me to tears in a theme
Hmm.
park.
Yeah.
And, you know, bravo, John Williams, for that piece of
Yeah.
music fit together with the people that made Savvy's Workshop. It's quite stunning. I mean, it really,
Yeah.
just thinking about it,
Right.
I remember that. So yeah, that was a moment where I can't believe this. Just
Mm.
special. Yeah.
Right. Well, I have to tell you, full disclosure, I was one of those people to take part in the workshop experience, and so I won't spoil it for you as well. But I felt the exact same way when that moment happened, to know that came from also people like you, not just thanks to John, but also thanks to people like you who envisioned that, to make, you know, a Star Wars kid who never thought he could bring home a lightsaber home one day, to be able to do that to such a degree that it became, yeah, almost something that rivals a lot of other emotional moments in life.
Absolutely.
So
Remarkable.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got my
Well,
lightsaber in the
you
closet.
have your lightsaber. Can you show
Oh
us
yeah,
your lightsaber? Do you have
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Um,
That was, what color was I? Green. I was green.
you were green.
Yeah,
Nice. I
my
think for everybody who knows the kyber crystals, I think
yes,
they know a little bit more about your personality now too.
yes.
Um, very cool, my friend. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I guess on behalf of many folks who've been able to experience, you know, everything that you've done for Disney parks, and as you know, there's quite a bit of them. We just want to say thank you for your work on these things, to be able to make us feel and make us enjoy the things that we hope to return to once again in the near future, and not a galaxy far, far away too. So thank you so much for your talents and your heart for this work. It's so cool to be able to talk to you and hear those stories, and now for people to really appreciate who you are as well, and being a part of this whole process. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you, Jordan. And it's been my complete pleasure, not only with you, but doing everything on these with Disney. It's just a wonderful experience. And I have to pinch myself. I'm delighted to be involved with it all. Thank you.
Awesome, my friend. Yeah, and we'll have to, once everything opens it back up again, we'll stay connected, and I'd love to build a lightsaber with you and ride Rise of the Resistance together one of these days.
You
So
got it.
awesome.
All
Thanks,
right.
Bill.
You bet, Jordan. See you.